All right, everybody. Today is October 20th. It's a Friday, TGIF. Today we're going to look more in depth about America's getting finally pushed into World War I. Now, yesterday we got some of the propaganda. I also reviewed some of the questions referring to how does the United States get drawn into this war because of submarine warfare. Today's question refers to that for the bell ringer. How did submarines provide a major problem for steamships carrying goods to Europe during World War I? That problem obviously is the fact that the submarines can fire without warning. There's no way that it even shows above the surface of the water. They can still take down a ship and destroy it without even being seen. So that's something that was very problematic for many steamships, like the Lusitanias you see here on the right, being attacked by a submarine by something that you would see here on the left. Now, these submarines at this time, as you can tell by the people on board, based on the orientation, they are not very big. They are meant to house a crew, maybe 10 men at most. But they all had their responsibilities and jobs on that ship, on that submarine, to make sure that they were successful in their endeavors to knock out passenger ships or even supply ships going across the Atlantic. So that was one of the problems that many steamships had to deal with, because these submarines were ruthless in their abilities to knock out any ships without warning. All right. So what we kind of looked at yesterday was these first two questions on this slide here, on the American public opinion of the U-boat, and then how did the sinking of the Lusitania change or bolster these opinions? Obviously, the Americans are not happy with the U-boat because Americans just don't want to see the Germans use this major piece of technology to their advantage. And it's bolstered, that opinion is bolstered by the sinking of the Lusitania because there are many Americans on the Lusitania that are killed. And of course, reports get sent back to the United States that Americans are murdered by German submarines, and Americans aren't very happy about that. So Woodrow Wilson's getting pressured by the American public, little by little, to join this war. And this preparedness movement to prepare for war really kicks up. All right. Next, we looked at the next question here. And again, these are questions that were on the top of the notes packet. If you were not here to do the notes packet or look at it, if I log on the Canvas, you can definitely take a look at it and see where these are located. But log on. After using your school information, U.S. history, and then World War I. And as this loads, you can definitely go down and scroll, and I have the information that you can see to download this packet. There's nothing much that we're getting new here today, so I might just add, for 1020, just took notes on this at the bottom here. After this video is done, I'll take care of that. But download this notes packet, and then you can help answer those questions using the book pages from 421 to 424 to help answer those. All right, so let me get back to where we were here. So how does the Sussex Pledge change German tactics? Now, the Sussex Pledge was an agreement or an agreement that was signed by the Americans and the Germans that said that the Germans would warn all passenger and supply ships before they were destroyed. Now, it's not that they're going to warn them before they search them and let them go. This is a warning and then a destroying of the ship. All that they're doing is giving people on the ship enough time to get off. That's the only difference. The ships are still being destroyed. The supplies are still being sent to the bottom of the Atlantic. And that's all the Germans wanted. The problem with the Sussex Pledge is ideally it doesn't work, and with theory, ideological stuff as well, it doesn't work because all these merchant ships are going to do is they're going to arm themselves. If I were a captain of a merchant vessel, I would arm myself, with weapons that I could defend myself. So whenever I did see a submarine who was popping above the surface, which is part of the plan with the Sussex Pledge, that's what we agreed upon, I would probably protect my ship at all costs because that's my livelihood. So I would shoot at the submarine, and I would make sure that that submarine would not have the capabilities of firing at me. So that's what I'm going to do. That's just human nature. I want to protect my line of work. I want to protect my business. I want to be able to protect my abilities to continue to make a livelihood. However, the German submarine captains are seeing this happening in multiple occasions, and they see this and saying, you know what? We got to defend ourselves. We're going to continue unrestricted submarine warfare. But to the Americans, when the Germans start attacking ships without warning again, the Americans believe that the Germans are violating the Sussex Pledge, while in reality, Americans did. However, it's about how Americans perceive this at home and whether or not Americans want to go to war. Because, the American people vote on a president, and they're the ones that make the decision, at least kind of force a president's hand when it comes to a political declaration of war, because if Wilson doesn't do this, there's no way he's getting elected next time around. So, again, the people can make the choice, and when the people get this news back about Germans still continuing to sink ships with unwarranted attacks, the American people begin to become very upset. Next one is the Zimmerman note. This is the last straw here. The Zimmerman note is a German note sent by Arthur Zimmerman that you see here on the right. His note technically states the following, and I have this. I might put this up on Canvas too, that way you can see it. It says, we intend to begin on the 1st of February unrestricted submarine warfare. This is the actual telegram leaving from Germany to the country of its endeavor, but it's going to Mexico. It says, we shall endeavor, in spite of this, to keep the United States of America neutral. So they're continuing the warfare, the attacks on submarines without warning, and they want America to stay neutral. However, they say, in the event of this not succeeding, meaning if America does not stay neutral, we make Mexico a proposal of alliance on the following basis. So Germany's going to make an alliance with Mexico and say, we'll make war together, make peace together. Awesome. General wartime alliance wording. They will also give general financial support and an understanding that, on our part, that Mexico is to reconquer the lost territory in Texas, Mexico, and Arizona. The settlement in detail is left to you. You will inform the President of the above most secretly as soon as the outbreak of war with the United States of America is certain, and added the suggestion that he should, on his own initiative, invite Japan to immediate adherence and at the same time mediate between Japan and ourselves. Please call the President's attention to the fact that the ruthless employment of our submarines now offers the prospect of compelling England in a few months to make peace. Signed, Arthur Zimmerman. This telegram is intercepted by Western Union's office in London. So the telegram operator that is there intercepting this and decoding it or translating it looks at this and says, wow, this is really ridiculous in terms of what they're trying to get at. And that Mexico is trying to make this happen. Now, you have to understand, Britain is at war with Germany and wants to get as much help as possible. Obviously, Britain's goal was to bring America into this war. Britain wanted America to join the war as soon as it started. However, America had other ideas and pressures from its public to stay neutral. But now London has an opportunity to feed this information to the United States and get the American people really built up against the Germans here for this war. Now, to kind of show you again what we mean by this idea. So here's the United States. Germany sends a telegram here from Berlin, up in the eastern part of Berlin. They send it to Mexico. That's the goal. However, Western Union has an office in London. They intercept this message and they translate it, give it to their government, and the people in England or in London decide that they are going to send it to Washington, D.C. in the United States. All right, send it down here to Washington. They will also send it to every single newspaper editor across the country, and it's very important to them because this is the German idea. They will form an alliance with Mexico. Germany will continue unrestricted submarine warfare off the coast of Europe. Right around this section here is where, essentially, the Germans will attack most of these ships. However, once the Germans begin to do that, the Americans will be much more upset, and they will hope that America will stay neutral even though they are still continuing this unrestricted submarine warfare. The problem is, if America does not stay neutral, they declare war, at that instant, Mexico, according to the agreement, will invade the United States in this section here. And then what will happen is the United States will have to force all of its military opposition down to the southwestern part of its country, not to Europe. Because the United States declares war, they want to get their troops to Europe as fast as possible. Instead, if Mexico's attacking us, we're going to be focused on this part of the country. Now, with the Germans continuing their unrestricted warfare, the United States is occupied by Mexico. Germany, the intentions are that they win this war very quickly. It's over, it's done. Germany now wins this war in Europe, and they can continue to fight for whichever side they believe in. Now that Mexico is an alliance, this will be something that Mexico will need help from Germany to defeat the United States. So the Germans come in, reinforce the Mexicans, and help win this battle in territory to where President Woodrow Wilson has no other choice but to surrender. As a result, Germany wins the war. They get the colonies in Africa that they so wanted so greatly. And at the same time, Mexico, as a result of the victory against the United States in the treaty, will receive Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona, land that previously once belonged to them before the Americans, with Sam Houston, like the Alamo, the Battle for the Alamo. All those states will become theirs because Mexico first had them at that moment. So very sketchy plan. Americans aren't too happy to see this when it gets reported into the newspapers. All right. So with these attacks and with these ideas, the Americans need one more straw to fall to really fall in, and it's about Russia. The guy up here to the right is an autocrat. His name is Tsar Nicholas II. He's a man with unlimited power. Now, the Americans can't really side with him yet because you have to think about our governmental system as a democracy, and you have to think about what he stands for as an autocrat, someone with unlimited power. We don't believe in one person having unlimited power, so we really can't side with him. However, there is a revolution that takes place between the Russians and also the lower classes of society led by Vladimir Lenin. Vladimir Lenin is the founder of what we see as Russian communism. As a result, he overthrows the Tsar with these mass forces of people that come in, overthrow him, and kill the Tsar and his family. They form a republic. Now, a republic is much easier for the United States to follow. Why? Because with an autocrat, the people don't choose that leader. According to that person themselves, the autocrat is someone who is chosen by God to rule. A republic is a place where someone is chosen to rule based on the people's decision. And that's what is being formed here. And I asked the question here in your note sheet, and if you print that out, you can answer this question on your own. But why does being aligned with an autocrat hurt our image? If we align ourselves with someone who's a king, how does that hurt our image, especially for a government that believes in democracy for people, that people have the power? So think about that. You can pause this video momentarily and then answer the question that are provided on the note sheet. Now, the rest of the note sheet after those 4 questions will continue here as well. So I would pause this as well to make sure you get this information on that note sheet that you can print out. These are all there in order. All right. Next step in the process is to look at preparedness. Is it working? At the time of us declaring war, we have 100,000 total active soldiers. We have the 17th largest army in the world, and we have 132,000 National Guardsmen, which are our militia. These are the weekend soldiers that go every other weekend to their military bases to train for one weekend out of every 2 months, and then they go. And then they come back home and they live their lives. These are the reserves. These are what the Army will call upon if they need extra help. Well, these National Guardsmen are there, but they need more training. So we have the 117th largest Army in the world, and we have other National Guardsmen who need more training. From an Army who thinks that they're ready, most people say that we are definitely not. So whatever soldiers we do have, John Pershing, who was the American general at this time, the 4-star general in the U.S. Army, he sends a contingent of American soldiers along with himself. They go over to Europe and they see that they need more troops. They are like, wow, we are undermanned. We have no clue what kind of war this is. We have intelligence reports, but we do not know exactly what is going on. So, with this, John Pershing encourages the United States under Woodrow Wilson to institute the Selective Service Act. The Selective Service Act is the quickest way you can get troops, and as most of you know, that is what we call a draft. So, this authorizes the drafting of young men for military service. Now, 24 million men around the country are eligible. Only 3 million are selected. All right, this is like a random selection process. I'm pretty sure they went around to every town and told them, you need to draft this many people for military service. You're the ones that lead it. You're the communities that lead it. And we're not going to do it. But you need to provide this many troops to report to these camps at these times so that way they can be ready for the military training to support our efforts in World War I. So 3 million men are selected. They joined the professional soldiers that we looked at last page, the 100,000 soldiers that are professionals that volunteered to join. They form the American Expeditionary Force, and they are called doughboys. Again, at any time if you see that you need to make up some information here, just pause the video, go back. YouTube is nice so you can do that, but you can see that as well. But they're called doughboys. Now, when they go across, they are trained in several different tactics. They use a bayonet. They are trained to fire their rifle. The Lee Enfield is a very accurate rifle at this point. They need help with that. They learn to dig a trench. Even though Pershing didn't like digging trenches, they still learn how to do it anyways. They had to put on a gas mask because, as we talked about earlier, gas is something that is used quite often. And they are also taught to throw a grenade. Now, Americans were very good at throwing grenades because of how often we played baseball. So we were some of the best at grenade throwing in terms of the distance at that moment. All right. We also learned about German crimes as propaganda to get Americans hating the Germans. And then we learned about strategies of trench warfare. We watched a video in class today, which we ended the class with, that talks about that training. I'll post that video on Canvas. That way you can see it and kind of look at some of the training. It's a silent video. There's no music. There's no speaking in it. But you can read the excerpts as they go along as to who gets trained, how they get trained, and what does that look like. Just put that into perspective as to whether you think, based on what we know about trench warfare, and also based on what we know about how these soldiers were trained, do you think these soldiers were ready? Tomorrow we will look at how America's soldiers kind of get trained for it and how we kind of enter this warfare, and we'll see and continue this idea tomorrow. All right. Check Canvas out for the videos and other documents you need to download for today, but nothing you really need to print out. Just use a note sheet. If you haven't printed out that note sheet yet, please make sure you get that and continue those notes today. All right? Everyone have a fantastic day. Have a great weekend too. Bye.